What's up, guys? WhoNeedsMeta here, capturing another match from locals, doing some more commentary. Don't blink here or you might miss game one. I'm on the left playing Machina hero, playing against Diva hero. I'm jokingly calling the deck Machina because it's Prisma with machines and Miracle Fusion and then a bunch of bombs, including this here, the Future Fusion. So you can see turn one, we lost the die roll, set Spy, we special Cyber Dragon, attack. We obviously attack first because if it's a Raikou, we don't want to lose our Future Fusion. Then main two, we activate Future Fusion, sending Submarine Roid and Ocean. Ocean is obviously sendable with Prisma, but so is Submarine Roid after Super Roid Jumbo Drill, which just allows us to send that card via Prisma. And it's a water machine, so it works with Machina and with Miracle Fusion, so that's why we play it. Unfortunately, for us, our opponent, we could have set the Mirror Force. It would have done literally nothing in our hand. Our opponent has the absolute wombo of 3 Darks, Dad, Brio, Mally, Colossal Fighter, OTK, 28, 29, 23, and we don't even have the privilege of Gores. They can even Synchro and then activate Miracle Fusion, and they've double Miracle in hand. It's probably the best hand you can open in Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're gonna lose that one just about every time due to, extreme variance. Looking at the sideboard, we're obviously gonna put in the Crows. We're gonna put in the Super Poly. And then I think for game, you see we're gonna put in the Pulling the Rugs. So Pulling the Rugs going first for things like Diva. And then when you go second, you could do things like Book of Moon because you assume your opponent is going to try and put in those Vanity's Fiends, which really hurt us. So that's the logic behind siding in Pullings first and Books going second. Game 2, we get to go first, and we get to also set 2. So we open Heavy Storm, but we also open a lot of trap cards. So we're going to try and manipulate our opponent to setting a bunch of cards here, thinking we don't have Heavy, by setting 1 real trap and also setting the Legacy, in hopes that they commit extra cards to the board, and then we can Heavy, essentially use our 1 trap, use our Legacy, and then Heavy for whatever that our opponent may have. There's also open Greffer Mally, which is pretty good opening, all things considered. So we're going to see a Greffer pitch Plague, and then send Mally, so that way you can stack the other Mally and do the Plague play, which is fairly standard there. So you see send Mally, and then stack the other Mally for it. We're also going to see a Gold Sark here. You can see he thinks about it for a while about which card to pick. He's going to eventually decide on Return from the Different Dimension because, again, Plague and Mally, it's essentially you get an 8 and then you get another free 8. So you can go Stardust, bring both back and get them back, and then you have the Plague in your graveyard again, and then you have the heroes in your graveyard as well. So you have 2 heroes for Miracle Fusion because both Mallies are back in your graveyard, and then you also have the reuse of Plague Spreader again. So it makes sense to go from the Return from the Different Dimension. So what we're going to try and do with this Heavy Storm, though, is we're going to have to hold it so that we can hit the return on our turn, so that we can't have to do it on our opponent's turn. So those 2 back row are now threatening because we can't just, Heavy Storm right away. So we're contemplating, are we going to set more cards? How are we going to play around this? Do we want to play into Torrential with the Prisma in our hand, or are we going to slow roll this? I think we can afford to slow roll this because we do have, again, trap cards in our hand, and our opponent has only 1 in hand. So we are up in cards here, so we can just kind of play it slow. We don't have to play into Torrential. And if they do decide to go for the return play early, we can just set the Compulse. That way, if it ends up being a Stardust Dragon, that's the 8 that they go with, we have an out to it. So we decide to set the card extra, even though we do have Heavy Storm, because we're going to wait for the committed return to the board before we blow Heavy, unless we draw one of our blowout fusion cards. So we're going to draw for turn. Again, no summon there, only 2 cards in hand. I believe we drew Trap Dust Shoot, which is actually pretty cool because we can set Trap Dust Shoot as a 4th card, and when they draw, they'll go to 3 and then Return from the Different Dimension gets them to 4 cards in hand, so that Trap Dust Shoot is now all of a sudden live. Again, we also have Future Fusion in our hand, and we're going to hold it because we do want the Fusion to hit the board with our Heavy Storm, and we have plenty of cards here. So again, standby phase, we're going to see that they go to 4. We're going to go with this here. We're going to put back the Diva, obviously, because there's a Miracle Fusion in hand, a hero already in grave, a hero in hand, and we don't want to deal with the water. So that is very helpful as well for us. So return Miracle and then Mally. So again, no more summons. If we wanted to be really aggressive, we could have set Solemn Judgment and then started doing things with Prisma. But we would, again, I would like our graveyard to be more set up before we start, because again, a good Miracle Fusion doesn't do enough here, because we need 2 cards in our graveyard to actually push for game more aggressively. So we're playing conservatively. Yes, we do have the Future Fusion, so we could have, again, tried to go for game. There's arguments for it, but we'd like to not lose out to something. So we're going to Legacy, and we're going to draw Deity Crow, and then we're going to hit for 18. And then this Deity Crow is going to help us deal with that Plague Mally play. Now, he's going to go Plague. We are going to Deity Crow the Plague. There is an argument for... yeah, because he's just going to do the Mally right away. There is an argument, so he doesn't just draw it again. There is an argument for banishing the Mally so that he draws the Mally, but if he drew a monster for turn, then he would have an active Plague Spreader, and we would have to use a trap card on that. So this is just more so... the next draw isn't a dead draw, but at the same time, we don't have to waste the trap card. So now we do see the 3 set. So we are going to Heavy Storm. Again, they have Thinking of a Response here, because again, they do have the Wing Blast set. And they're going to let it go through, and we're just going to compulse the Mally back to hand. So we'll put a dead card in hand, and we'll lose a card. And then, because we have the Force off of this, we can first set up with Prisma, but because we have the Force set, yeah, we're going to send that there because we need to keep the Ocean in our graveyard. Or in our deck, sorry, to send it to the graveyard with Future Fusion. So we can Future Fusion reveal Gaia, send a Fortress, and then a hero monster, which will be the Ocean, which is why we revealed Submarineroid for send Prisma there. And then we have the Force to be able to dump the Fortress with our graveyard with the Future Fusion, and that's enough for game. Going into the sideboard, the books are going to come in. I hadn't seen any Caiuses yet, so I was a little worried that maybe this build wouldn't be on it, even though it was on the Spies. I feel like it should be, but again, usually Vanity's Fiend comes in for Caiuses, especially against Fortress, because it looks at the hand and rips a card. So that is kind of the logic there. So I was like, okay, maybe we don't have to worry about Caius. We'll still attempt to play around it the best we can, but maybe the pullings aren't as good as books going second. And then we're going to try and store in 1 Kaiku as well going second to deal with those Greffer plays, because I always liked the Greffer banish the card with the Kaiku, because Kaiku can hit over it. So going second, game 3, we have unfortunately opened legitimately the 2 Garnets in the deck, both Ocean and Submarineroid. We are going to be playing not from a position of power in this one, and our opponent has opened the best card in their deck to open with Future Fusion, and we've unfortunately opened both our bricks. So those are the 2 cards you want to send the most with both Future Fusion and Prisma. They very rarely do anything in your hand. Ocean is, I would argue, even more of a brick than Submarineroid. Submarineroid you can pitch for Fortress, again, because it's a machine, so it's okay in your hand. Being an 1800 wall is okay in some matchups, but unfortunately, drawing both is pretty difficult to play out of. Future Fusion here for, or going to Sark for the Rhoda. That way, this tells me, okay, they have Mally in hand. This is an easy read because it gives them the option to go for Greffer, but you want to pick Rhoda over Greffer because maybe at the time you want a different warrior like Stratos or something. So that gives you an option. Again, we are going to gear frame for the Fortress, and because we know our hand kind of stinks, we're going to try and push as hard as we possibly can to try and end this game before our bricks catch up to us. So we are going to indeed put the Fortress out there with no back row and go for 43 to try and get as much damage. Again, we don't have to play around Gores with that Future Fusion. And I think equipping here makes the most sense because of a potential Miracle Fusion play. We're going to lose our whole board either way, so we do have a D-Prison in our hand. So if we equip and they Miracle Fusion, we're able to banish it, and then we only lose our gear frame. We lose D-Prison in gear frame as opposed to Fortress in gear frame, and Fortress is obviously much more valuable. when we're trying to end the game early based on our poor opening. So we do see the Cyber Dragon, which is unfortunate because we're going to get contacted. Again, equipping also because this is now a 2K 2K rather than a 3K 2K Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Or 2K, not 3K, that's 0 defense. So we draw Gores here, which I'm debating on whether or not we need to set this Ocean. Because we guarantee know they're going to have a monster in hand because of Rhoda, and we know they're going to have a fusion coming out with the Absolute Zero. So we know they're going to have 3 monsters, so it makes sense to just go ahead and set it. We will attempt to deprison the Absolute Zero and lose it anyways. That's what we were thinking, but I was like, what if they have an MST or an out, or if they decide to make the smart play and going for Stratos instead of Greffert, we're going to lose our deprison anyways, which is exactly what happens. So Stratos will use the back row popping effect because he controls another hero, which is Absolute Zero, non-targeting removal. So we're going to go ahead and unfortunately lose our deprison to that effect. And Fortress Dragon's going to take out our Ocean, but now we have a live Miracle Fusion. Absolute, he's going to go direct with Absolute Zero for 25. A little bit of a misplay there, not trying to go with the Gore or play around Gores with the Stratos first. So we're going to be at 35. Again, we're feeling kind of comfortable because we're okay with being able to hit for damage with the token over the Gores and then the Gores over the Ab Zero, but unfortunately we do see he's holding the out in his hand of the Miracle Fusion, being able to banish the Absolute Zero and the Diva to get another Absolute Zero, triggering the initial Absolute Zero, leaving the field, and also smartly putting it in defense position so I can't ram a Fortress into it to pop 2 cards, both it by battle and then pop either the Chimera Tech or the Stratos, which will most likely be the Chimera Tech. And there's the Dead Future Fusion. We also have a Miracle Fusion in our hand, which is going to be our out. We have Book and then Legacy as well. I believe I did board out 1 extra Legacy, so I only have 2 in the main deck at this time. But I think Miracle Fusion honestly is our only out because we're not drawing any monsters here. We're also contemplating going for big damage and trying to get the Gaia in there, but it just makes too much sense to go here. So we're going to hit over the Stratos for 700, which gives us, we have 2 set cards, and then of course we have our Ab Zero forcing, if they want to commit anything to the board, they're going to go 2 for 1 here. We're going to be able to clear 2 cards and then force the summon if there is one in main 2, which is pretty good. So Ab Zero is going to crash. We're going to be able to take 2 cards with it. We're contemplating booking it, but it doesn't make any sense to do it because we're going to have to deal with it. We don't have a Compulse set. If we did have a Compulse set, it would make sense because Ab Zero does not trigger when removed from the field face down. They're going to set Torrential Tribute. We're going to draw. We're going to draw Gear Frame, which would normally be pretty good, but we get hit by pulling the rug, which is unfortunate. Force would have given us enough for game there. And then we're going to go ahead and set 1. And then we see a Diva, which is going to go for Spine Gilman. We're jokingly saying with the Legacy, I was like Force off the top. And unfortunately, I did draw Force, but I did draw the incorrect Force. I drew Mirror Force. So this is going to get both of these off of the board. Again, I don't really like Book as an out here. We'll go ahead and see the Mirror Force. Then we'll draw and set. Cadigan hands me a White Prince for some godforsaken reason. Our opponent draws Trap Dust Shoot. You see he's holding quite a few power cards along with the Brain Con. So we're going to see the second Miracle Fusion. So this is going to be the 3rd Absolute Zero. We're going to see Banish Stratos and Banish another Diva. And then we're going to see the Absolute Zero come out. They're going to attack, and we're going to compulse that back. We don't have anything to lose, so it feels pretty free. And so we've already successfully dealt with 3 Absolute Zeros. We draw, I believe, a second Book of Moon, so both cards are booked. Unfortunately, we cannot deal with 4 Absolute Zeros. It's relatively difficult to deal with here, so we're going to see an Ocean and a Gilman banished for the third Absolute Zero being the fourth, and then we're just going to unfortunately have to book it. We have 2 books. This will help us if we draw Bottomless or something like that and keep our life points. We do not. We draw and set. We're going to see the flip summon here. And attack, and it is Machina Peacekeeper. This is a really solid one of inclusion that I've really liked lately. The only card I haven't really cared for is Grammel. I think I'd like it to be Goldsark. Again, we have a bunch of fusion cards in our deck right now that we're just simply not drawing. And he's gonna set 1 and pass. So we're gonna go ahead and summon the Gear Frame and get Force. And this Force is gonna allow us to get Fortress. So when we pitch this Force here, it makes sense to equip if we're able to successfully get the summon off the play around Mirror Force, because we're going to lose both guys either way. So we're going to pitch, and then special, and he's going to have a Bottomless, and then we do have to chain our Book of Moon here to keep our Fortress alive. Again, this will allow us to remove a card from the board whenever we can. The only monster in his hand being Mally and Sangan. He could Tribute Summon if he wanted to, which wouldn't be... clears the board, but it also removes the threat of the Ab Zero, so I think it makes sense to simply set Sangan and get rid of the Gear Frame. We know one of the back row is Torrential Tribute. I can't recall what the other card is. He's going to go ahead and set 1. And so we have Kaiku and Crow here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just try and clear both monsters. It makes sense to just go ahead and use the effect to pop the monster just in case it is Spy, but it ends up being Sangan, which is a little bit unfortunate for us, so we give him a little bit of a plus there, or a little float there. He's going to debate a little bit. The card he's going to end up going with is Infernal Prodigy, which sucks for us because it means we're like forced to respect Caius, so because we can't set Crow, to protect our life points because we're worried about what damage. We can't set Crow because that is game. Caius makes it game. We can't summon Kaiku because Caius also makes it game because they're both dark, banish, attack. So we're forced to just pass here. We're kind of contemplating is there a way to just kind of play around this Caius? And the only way to do that is to just simply have to pass. He's going to draw into an Allure of Darkness, which is pretty good. Contemplating what to do with said Allure of Darkness. I'm presuming Digging for Return, as it's probably the last power card in the deck. Because Diva's already been used for the 1-card Synchro with the Gilman. You can say 3 Darks in hand, so contemplating what's left. I believe Darkarn likely long dead here. Gonna special the Infernal Prodigy, attribute it for Malicious and hit for 8. Unfortunately, in Edison, you can't Crow the Infernal Prodigy to stop it, so there's no point in crowing there. We're gonna try and get in there with the Kaiku. And then if he does have removal for the Kaiku, when we do the damage here, we're gonna try and get rid of 1 dark here. We're getting rid of the Infernal Prodigy, and then we're getting rid of the Cyber Dragon just in case of something like Chaos Sorcerer in the main deck. So in case the Kaiku gets removed from the board, we don't have to deal with the Chaos Sorcerer. He's going to bring Connet. Attempt to swing. I believe there is a Caius in hand. And we are going to go ahead and compulse our guy back to our hand, so that prevents the Tribute Summon. And then we're just going to set. That is the set Spy. We have MST. Obviously, it makes sense to just blind space. We got to get rid of something. So we're going to hit the TT. We're going to Kaiku, and we're going to hit into the Spy, which sucks. Now, this is not game here because Spy, or doesn't it tribute the Spy? Pop is only 15, which would leave us at 300 life points, enough to have another turn if we're able to draw something. But Minecon off the top is going to take us out of there pretty quickly. So, unfortunately, Minecon off the top. Again, Caius already was game as is. Didn't need to draw the Minecon. But yeah, it's a deck that I'm still definitely working on. It's going to need some tweaks. I do think maybe 1 copy of Goldsark. We only saw 1 Miracle Fusion that game, despite going through a hefty amount of our deck. And we do need to say, again, we also didn't see any Prismas to set up our graveyard, or the Roto, or the Stratos, which we would have needed to see. We did have our 1 hero, but not enough. So thanks for watching, guys.